Thank you for joining the Beacon of Hope podcast from Lighthouse Baptist Church at 2032 Cedar Hill Road, Lancaster, Ohio. This is Pastor Manning. We're continuing our series on For Such a Time as This, episodes in Esther. We're doing the 12th in the series this morning, and a quick little thought on the tender mercies of the wicked. Last episode we dealt with was dealing with the deliverance begins. God is not mocked. And in that episode, we saw Haman, the man who had, through a little bit of subterfuge and intrigue, had gotten the authority and power to exterminate a whole group of people out of the large kingdom of Ahasuerus. And King Ahasuerus had kind of blindly given him this authority. Haman had just told Ahasuerus, there are people in your kingdom, they're dangerous to you, they're basically different than everybody else, they don't fit in, they don't get along, they're going to try to undercut you. And the king didn't even ask who it was or what people it was, but rather he gave authority for Haman to have these people exterminated. And Haman, of course, had brought money into it and said that he would bring such and such amount of money into the king's treasuries by doing this. And basically the setup was that on a certain date, everybody could turn against these people, who happen to be the Jewish people, and just do to them whatever they wanted with complete impunity, and then take their goods and all that sort of thing. Well, God had taken this and, of course, was going to protect his people. And it's pretty amazing when you think of this is a accurate historical event that happened. And the queen, Esther, who was a Jew at that time, howbeit she being a Jew was unknown to Ahasuerus and to the others in the kingdom, she had went in before King Ahasuerus at the risk of her own life, doing so without being asked to come, and had asked for King Ahasuerus and Haman to meet her at a banquet she prepared. This had happened. Haman was so excited that he was the only one allowed in with the king and the queen, and this pride-filled man was just taken so much with himself. He went home and got all his friends together and his wife and everybody and just spent time telling them how great he was. Can you imagine having somebody like that just invite you over to their house to tell you how wonderful they are? And he did that, and they're all on his side. And he said, there's one thorn in my flesh. He said, it's a fellow by the name of Mordecai. And he's a Jew. And boy, as long as he's alive, I can't even enjoy all this great prestige I have. And of course, Mordecai was a cousin to Esther and had raised her as if he'd been her father. And Mordecai wouldn't bow down when Haman came past him. Zeresh, who is Haman's wife, and all of his friends, all of his counselors said, tell you what, this guy's in your way. Why don't you just hang him? Build a giant gallows. Hang him. And, he built one big enough. He was building one big enough to pop Mordecai's head off his shoulders. Literally, this thing was huge. And Haman's like, oh yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll have him hanged, and then everything will be good. And so Haman had went back to the king's palace and was going to secure permission to kill this man. And that was his intent. And while he did it, God intervened. And old King Ahasuerus, he couldn't sleep. And so he was trying to get to sleep. And he said, I'll tell you what, bring the history books of the kingdom before me. Let's read about the detailed day by day, chronicles, the history of what happened in day by day business in the kingdom here. I guess kind of figuring that put him to sleep. And anyway, he wanted to hear that, and God was working. God's always working. And boy, the one passage that they decided to read to the king was about an assassination plot that had recently happened, not very long before this, where two of the men who guarded the king's chamber, his bedroom, his living area, two of them, his own personal guard, had decided they were going to kill the king. Teresh and Bigthane, their names. And he found out that there was a man named Mordecai, a Jewish man named Mordecai, who had found out about the plot, who had exposed it, and those two would-be assassins ended up being hanged. And so instead of the king being assassinated, he was made safe. The king didn't even know about all this. And the king asked a question. He said, what did we ever do for this fella? He saved my life. And they said, King, nothing was ever done for him. And so he goes, man, he said, we need to do something here. And so he said, who's outside of my chamber now? Who's out here in the palace? And they said, well, Haman just came in. He said, oh, good. Bring Haman to me. So Haman comes in, and the king asked him, he says, what should be done to the man that the king wants to honor? Well, Haman is so prideful, he thought it was him. And he told him, he said, tell you what, put on some of the king's clothes that he's worn, put the king's crown on his head, let him ride the king's horse, and let one of the top servants in the country run before him and say, this is the man the king wants to honor. And the king says, that's a great idea, Haman. You go and do that to Mordecai. Oh, my soul. Mordecai has to run through the streets of the kingdom, telling everybody, or Haman rather, has to run through the streets of the kingdom, telling everybody how great Mordecai is. He's just devastated, And that brings us to today's episode, the tender mercies of the wicked. It's interesting, Proverbs 12, verse 10, the scripture says, a righteous man regardeth the life of his beast, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. And where the righteous man cares about what's under his care, even down to making sure he takes proper care of his animals. Doesn't treat them like humans, but treats them well. By contrast, the wicked, even their kindnesses are cruel and are tainted with wrong motive. We're going to see that in this quick thought. Beginning in verse 12 of chapter 6 in the book of Esther, it records what happens after Haman has run through the streets of the capital there in the palace. He's run through the streets proclaiming to everybody what a great man Mordecai is. Verse 12, it says, and Mordecai came again to the king's gate, back to where he was before. But Haman hasted to his house mourning. Can you imagine? He's groaning, he's crying. Oh man, what in the world's happened? And having his head covered. This proud man, he's just so devastated. And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Now, this is the crowd that just a little while before had been saying to Haman, yeah, you're a great man. Tell you what, Mordecai is giving you trouble. Nobody can stand in your way. Kill him. Do what you ought to do. Show him how strong you are. This is that same crowd that had been egging him on for his wickedness. Look what they do when the tide's obviously starting to change. And Haman told Zeresh and his wife and his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai of the seed of the Jews before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fail before him. And while they were yet were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains and hasted to bring Haman into the banquet that Esther had prepared. So what they did a 180 on him. Came in and he said, oh, I can't tell you what happened today. They said, oh, you're going to fail now. Oh, things have changed. You're going to fail. Oh, this is going to go bad for you. Oh, buddy, you've done it now. Oh, man, you've stepped into a mess here. Oh, man, you've overextended. These are the same people that just a little while before this, couple days before, had said, you go build a gallows and you have this guy hanged and you show him how strong you are. Now they're like, oh, buddy, you're in a lot of trouble. Such is the way of the wicked. Such is the way of the wicked. No strong loyalty, no integrity. They just turned on him that quickly. Well, you know what's happening here, don't you? God's hand's in it. And this man who sought to destroy God's people is going to find out that the God whose peoples they are not happy about that at all. That should really serve as a warning to all leaders in all times, in all countries, that persecuting or bringing pressure against God and his people and against God and his work is a very, very bad idea. In our next episode, we're going to see what happens at this second banquet. You don't want to miss it. It's absolutely amazing what God does. You'll find the information about it beginning in Esther chapter 7. Till then, may God bless you. Have a great day.